Okay, so hopefully this is back live and you guys can hear me. So let's see how it goes. Okay, well, this has been eventful. Let me share it with Discord again. And see while people are getting back here. Okay, well, hopefully everyone has found this new stream okay. I'm in the middle of trying to get everything back set up. Had some technical difficulties. My sound decided that it just didn't want to work, which is fun. Yeah, it kind of summarizes up how this whole weekend for me is kind of gone. Everything's broken. Okay, I'm glad someone besides Ken found the stream. So I'm going to go ahead and just start talking as people start filtering themselves in. Clearly our description is not right, and we're going to have to update that. So Ken and I will take care of that later on after this stream's done. So welcome to Ion Radio. It is now functioning. And I'm John, and this is the Backseat Admiral on September 20th, 2021. We had some technical difficulties in our first attempt for the stream today. My mic decided that it didn't want to work, and OBS didn't want to work, so I had to shut down everything and restart. So if you've come back, welcome back. Today I'm going to keep it on the little bit of the shorter end compared to my previous episodes. I had a lot going on, if you can see all the boxes and stuff. Currently packing for a move, and like the sound system, other things decided to break this weekend, like my air conditioning. So it was 87 degrees here with the windows open in this room the other night, so I didn't even know if I was going to be doing a Backseat Admiral at all. So today I'm primarily going to be just focusing on talking about our last episode that we did, which is Season 2, Episode 1, which is Obi-Wan versus Count Dooku. I actually was playing this week a Patreon fleet that was submitted to us by one of our Patreons, Rovechkin. And so I'm going to kind of break down a little bit more than what I did in our after-action report of what I thought of the list and things like that, because playing your own list and talking about the strategies is one thing, but then playing someone else's list that they built it and had something in mind, and then you played it and you probably had something completely different in mind because every player is different, means that you have different opinions on it. So I'm going to talk first probably about Ken's fleet, and then jump into that fleet, and then talk about the game as a whole. If you guys have any questions or things that you would like to be answered, drop it in the comments, and I will take a look at it. So let's switch over. And does the sound switch when I switch here? So, yep, so here's what we had. We had Dooku versus Obi-Wan. We both had a few fighters and a few ships to represent our different factions. Where is Ken's fleet? Here's Ken's fleet. He has Munificent, a Recusant, and 2 hard cells. And his commander's Count Dooku. I really like Count Dooku. I've been in a building phrase for other commanders recently, just because he was one of the first commanders and I really, really liked him off the bat. This Recusent Light Destroyer has Count Dooku, gunnery teams, hyperwave signal boost, linked turbo laser towers, and Patriot's Fist. So I'm going to just start talking about it now. A lot of people commented on our video about how they don't think it should have gunnery teams and Patriot's Fist, and I'm torn on this. I actually need to play the Recusent a lot more to come up with a definite answer on that. And my theory is the Patriot's Fist only works at long and medium range. If it worked at close range, I would 100% gunnery teams is not useful on this ship. But when ships engage close to you, gunnery teams is kind of nice to shoot both ships with 6 dice, 4 reds and 2 blacks. So, like, I've built a lot of my Recusents with both. I've also, instead of linked turbo laser towers, a lot of times I add swivel mounted, so then I can add a black dice at range, which works with Patriot's Fist and works if you use gunnery teams especially. You can just like gun down things at longer range, so I'm a little bit torn on that. Ken mentions in our report that he wasn't really able to use the hyper signal boost at all. Ken's not much of a fighter player. He's more of a ship player, a skirmisher. So his idea was to use the hyperwave signal boost so that his ships could be doing other things, and then he could just activate them during the squadron phase. But Ken actually did a really good job in this game of activating all of his fighters as he went into the battle. So then this hyperwave signal boost actually wasn't needed because all of his fighters were activated every turn that they were used pretty much, or out of range. So, but, you know, that's one of those things. It just depends on matchups, and sometimes you're doing one thing and another time you're doing something else. So a second shift is the Munificent class comms frigate. It has battle droid reserves on it. Hyperspace signal boost again. That's so then he could activate all of his squadrons. And then linked turbo laser towers, which is the stapled on card. So battle droid reserves, this is the first time it's come up on our channel. I almost put it into a bunch of my different builds, and then have decided against it. So let's talk about what else you could put in besides Battle Droid Reserves, and why Battle Droid Reserves might be the right answer over the other one. So what Battle Droid Reserves does is droid only, which is pretty much all of the CIS ships. Engineering, you may exhaust this card. If you do, flip any number of your face up damage cards with this crew trait, with the crew trait face down, because, you know, droids don't care about crew, they don't need life support. And then discarding face down damage cards cost 1 fewer engineering point. And that's pretty good. So that means for the cost of 2 points, you can get rid of a damage card. So with the 4 engineering with this card, you could get rid of 2 damage cards. Or if you have a token with it, you can get rid of 3 damage cards. So what else gets rid of 3 damage cards? That is Reinforced Blast Doors. So Reinforced Blast Doors does not require you to have a command to use it. It's just at the beginning of the phase. So your ship already has to be damaged at the start of the turn for you to use it. Well, this you can do when you activate. And this doesn't eat up a defensive retrofit swap. So both of the Munificent class ships can actually take it. So if you're planning on repairing, this isn't a bad card to use. So Reinforced Blast Door costs 5 points. So this is like right in the realm of both of them being affordable. And what I don't like about it is that it costs an engineering token to refresh. And for a ship that only has 6 hull, both of them are kind of wishy-washy if you're able to use it properly. So those are my thoughts on those 2 cards. I like it on this ship. It didn't get to use it because, again, you have to activate it to use it, and I was able to kill Ken's ship right before it would have activated to use it. So his next 2 ships are both hard sells. He has TI-99 and linked turbo laser towers, and like I've already said, this is backseat, so we're looking at things 2020. Ken activated all of his fighters. So TI-99 never had a chance to get used in this game. But it is a deterrent. It made me shoot things that were already activated, so then it was like a cascade during like the squadron phase of you're activating that, I'm activating this, and back and forth. So that I was leaving things that weren't activated, so then I wasn't intentionally attacking them, so then he couldn't trigger TI-99 on me. Then he had a hard sell with Teaks, Comsnet, and Beast of Burden. Beast of Burden I have always felt to be a hard card to actually pull off properly because of its restriction. Because you kind of want another ship to go first to like eat fire, and then Beast of Burden to activate, but then you need to already be in close range. And if your ship was far enough forward to be in range of the ship that's being shot at, they might just shoot at Beast of Burden. But maybe that's a good thing that it's not shooting at your big ship. So there's that. Teaks and Comsnet work well, so then you can pass tokens around to everyone and then still get the dial that you want. So yeah, it's a good little combo piece. He ends it with 3 vultures and 3 hyenas. This is pretty cheap way to have a little group of fighters with TI-99 like in Hyperwave. Like if you want to fly into my hyenas, go ahead. And the vultures are just there to be a bit of an annoyance with TI. That yeah, a vulture for like 8 points and it's going to be throwing 3 blue dice counter at you is pretty awesome. So yeah, that's his fleet. Not really much else to say about it. I think that the cards that he wasn't able to use in this battle could be useful in a different battle. It's just sometimes the matchups means that your cards aren't going to be used. And I feel that was the case with this. So let's roll now into Rovechkin's fleet. So Rovechkin's one of our Patreon members, and we run lists from our Patreon. That's our goal with different seasons and things like that. So if you're a Patreon member, you can... Ken and I will do a call for lists, and you guys can send us lists, and then we can go ahead and run them. So this is his list. We made some modifications. He wasn't fully set on the objectives, so I chose some of the objectives. Oddly enough, he wanted a fleet in Bean, which is the objective that we ended up playing in the list, so I kept it, and that's the objective that Ken ended up picking. I think it's mainly because Ken really just is tired of playing my contested outpost that I throw him every single week, so he just wanted to pick something new. So this list consists of Obi-Wan Kenobi, who's sitting on a Venator 1. It has Intel Officer, Clone Gunners, Hot Landing, the Spat, Ordnance Pods, and Link Turbo Laser Towers. I really like this setup of ships. It's pretty good. So when I'm running Spat, I usually put on it Ordnance Pods. And that is because normally when I'm running Spat, I'm running like next to no fighters. And Ordnance Pod just automatically lets me attack fighters every single turn if they're near me, which is kind of a good defense. I've been using it a lot more since the GAR came out than I had previously with the Galactic Civil War era. I did use it in the past. I did bring it once to Gen Con. I had this, I thought it was cool. It was a Thrawn Ruthless Strategist TIE Bomber list, which was a lot of fun. Basically, I would pull you into me, and then I would flak your fighters in Ruthless Strategist, my bombers, and then Ordnance Pods would go off, and I would do the same thing. And I also had this, I called it a flak wagon. It was a demo that was made just to kill squadrons, because at the time, Riken was like the main enemy. And in like a practice game, I killed off every single Riken ace in an ace holes list in 1.5 turns with it. So I would flak with Ruthless from a Glad 2, move it 1, flak out the other zone, and then I would have, 2 dice, basically a blue dice on everything twice with Ruthless, so I could just add everything down, and then I would just mithril in afterwards and wipe everything out. It was a lot of fun. Not very useful, not very good, because I only faced 2 total squadrons, like squadron stands in 4 rounds, because everyone just brought ships that year, so it's sometimes just mashup. Back to this list, though. So, Intel Officer, you can do it once, and you can pair that with the Spat, and the Spat's just blue dice, and it's just basically guaranteed damage that they don't want to take. Clone Gunners will guarantee that you get an accuracy when you really, really need an accuracy, which works, again, well with Spat if you're just blasting in 6+ damage a turn. Hot Landing, I understand why he took it, because he has a lot of fighters with Adept. It didn't come into play because none of them got killed, but so I can't really pass judgment on it. I can't say if it was useful or not useful. It does give everyone grit that has Adept, which that could be useful, especially with Ahsoka, and her ability that she just wants to kind of like skim the outside of a squadron battle and then just ping in her damage by activating another squadron. So that could be useful. It didn't come into play, but then like what I said with Ken's list, sometimes object cards and things like that just don't get used because of matchups or the way the game unfolds. So I like this setup on this ship. The next ship is an Acclamator 1 assault ship. It has clone gunners, reserved hangar decks, expanded hangar bay. It has a bunch of different bays. It's just a fighter ship. Assault, proton torpedoes, and linked turbo laser towers. So, as I mentioned in our after action, I don't like clone gunners on this ship. Usually, clone gunners should be on a gunship that's going to be focusing on doing just damage from the ship itself. But this isn't a gunship acclamator. This is a carrier acclamator. So if you like plan out all of your turns commands, Obi-Wan to keep the spat going is going to be doing concentrate fire to guarantee that you have a token. And with the next ship, it can be past a token, but you need a token to refresh every single turn. This ship is going to be doing squadrons every single turn because it's a squadron pusher. The other ship is not going to be doing either of those things, so you don't have enough concentrate fire tokens around for both the acclamator and the Venator to be able to trigger clone gunners both on the same turn, because there's not enough tokens to go around unless you time it right with throwing tokens out. But that's difficult to plan for, so in practice I try not to plan for that. What I would try to get into this list instead would be flight controllers. I feel that while flight controllers is already a very good card, flight controllers is almost essential for the Republic. We'll get to that when we get to the squadrons, but most of the Republic squadrons have a red dice, and you know me, my belief in red dice and squadrons is it's just not even an existent dice. Sometimes it surprises you and comes up with the damage, but it's not something to be expected. It is just what it is. So it takes their, then in my mind, how I figure damage, their 2 blue dice attacks up to 3 blue dice, and 3 blue dice is respectable, especially most of their squadrons have swarm, so you get a reroll. Juicy. So if I were to change the fleet, I would try to get flight controllers onto this ship because it's a fighter pusher, and I can then activate it with 4 squadrons, which is good. So the next ship is a Pelta transport frigate, and it has munitions resupply on it. So this is how I was talking about, like you could push tokens out, but it's not enough tokens to really trigger things reliably as enough as you need it to be. It can probably do it for 2 turns. So pass itself 1, pass both of the ships 1, and now you have a token. But that's not enough to trigger clone gunners and keep the spat going. So you'll need another source of tokens to do both, especially if you have 2 ships with clone gunners. So the token economy isn't there to keep both those ships with clone gunners, which is just an easy fix. You toss clone gunners on the one ship, and you add in flight controllers, and then your fighters are more potent. So here's the fighters. So you have 3 Adept squadrons, and you have 4 Taurens, which all of these squadrons would love to have an additional additional blue dice added to them. So you have Ahsoka, who I like Ahsoka's ability, especially paired with Anakin, because Anakin can just move wherever he wants to because of his ability, which is exhaust one of his defense tokens, and then he ignores all engagement, and then he can shoot whoever he wants. He can shoot a ship, he can shoot squadrons, he can shoot through engage. It's really nice. And it's to the end of his activation. And then Ahsoka comes in and says, hey, Anakin, throw 2 dice. And Anakin's like, yeah, that sounds great. Hey, I also have Adept 2, so I can re-roll both of them and roll it. Cool. Blue Minara says that she's going to help protect all the squadrons that are near her. So you just plop her in the middle. And everything, all the non-unique squadrons are treated as obstructed. Then the Taurans protect your aces, because you have to kill them first, and they're obstructed. So then Ahsoka's doing her thing, moving around. Especially with the, what is it, hot landing? Sorry. Yeah, hot landing, giving all 3 of these guys grit. So then they can move if they're engaged with one person. So then you can move in, kill a guy, and then just scoot around and stay inside your little bubble of engagement. This is a pretty good fighter group for Gar to try to kill it. But if you were to add 1 more blue dice with flight controllers, it would be just slightly better. So like the Taurans being a red and 2 blue, getting bumped up to 3 blue would be way better. I like flight controllers. It's almost all of my builds now with Gar. I just throw flight controllers in because it just helps them so much. It's almost like it's needed. So that's the list. Really, my 2 primary things that I would change is taking off actually, just 1. Yeah, just taking off clone gunners from the Acclimator and making it just into a fighter pusher. That's what I would change. So those are the fleet builds. I'm going to check back into the comments, and you guys can talk about whatever you want with that. And then we'll jump to objectives and then how the game actually played out. Yeah, so sorry, my computer's really, really loud. Especially when I've been turning it on and off trying to get the stream going. It just cooks. So, sorry about that. Yeah, I like Watch Wambor, but a lot of times on a Munificent, he might not be useful enough because they tend to explode really, really fast. And for me, it's like explode with all their shields, which is frustrating. What's my opinions on Armada being put on the back burner until 2022, supposedly? I actually did an entire episode of Backseat Admiral the other day on it. And my opinions really haven't changed that much since then. So to summarize really fast, it's not dead, it's dying. We're on pause. And I think it has a lot to do with licensing issues and the development cycle being about 18 to 24 months for start of development through the end. Us still being a pandemic really makes it difficult for them to do any playtesting because technically they shouldn't be encouraging people to get together still. On top of that, they have the issue of the development cycle going through the end of where their license should supposedly be. And why would you want to develop and spend money developing a product that isn't going to be yours at the end of it? So that's kind of my take on it. We'll see how things unroll. I'm hopeful that the game continues, but at the same time, the game's in a very healthy state. We could use one more, wave of Clone Wars era stuff, but technically it's viable. So that's kind of my stand on it. Ken and I are going to continue doing a whole bunch of videos. We have multiple seasons actually planned out and in production, so that's not going to stop because the game is great. Okay, let's see what else you can really get. Ken might do a video on his TTS tournaments. I don't play any, so I probably won't be talking anything about that on Backseat. What about anti-squadron firepower for your squadron pusher? What do you, Bradley? Do you mind going more into detail about what that question is? For the squadron pusher, do you mean like taking off APT and putting on ordnance pod? Because I would be up for that as well. What's going on, Mark? Hopefully your night's going well. Can't wait to play you in the future, William. Yes. William, did we play, are you from Texas? Did we play, was it round 1 or round 2 of the LVO? That might be. If you're the person I'm thinking of. So, let me know. Right now, I have no plans for future tournaments because my work weekend is landing on every single tournament that has been announced for next year, which is frustrating. Like LVO, I usually work like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Well, that's not going to work. That's a lot of time off that I probably won't be able to get. I have other things going on next year that we'll talk about later on, which also will complicate that type of stuff. But, yeah, like, right now, like, I have my PTO already assigned to things, which aren't tournaments, and then all the tournaments are dropping right on top of my weekends to work, which is frustrating. I remember you. It was your first tournament, right? Right, William? Yeah. That was a fun tournament. I enjoyed it. I was a little bit surprised. Our channel was only around for 3-ish months, and people were recognizing me, and they're like, hey, I know you. And I'm like, really? How do you know me? I've never met anyone before. And then it's like I'd forgotten that I was on a channel. It was kind of funny. So, yes, thank you for joining us, Mark. Ken is in the chat, and he says that he is planning on going to Adepticon. So, Jeremy is asking, you did not want to put clone gunners on your carrier. Would you lean towards defensive firepower or just maximize squadron offense? It is in my mind, it's a fighter pusher, so we would just double down into what it's good at, which is maximizing fighter power. I don't like really making jack of all trade ships, me personally. I like making hyper-focused ships. Like, if it's doing squadrons, that's what it's going to be doing, and it's a carrier, so I'm going to dump everything into it. And then, if I'm making this is going to kill ships, I primarily lean into that. A lot of times I'll throw ordnance pods on instead of like external racks, which if you were just going to go pure ship, you get that. It's harder to go full into anti-ship without kicking over to having a little bit of anti-fighter, because if you don't have anything to like deter any fighters, then you're in a lot of trouble. Okay, so let's talk about objectives real fast, and then we can go into deployment, and you guys can keep asking me questions, and I'll get back to them. Okay, so Rovechkin wasn't quite sure on what objectives he wanted, and he kind of gave me a little bit of freedom to choose what I wanted. I kept Fleet and Bean because that's one of them that he had listed, and it ended up being the one that we played, and I think it's the reason why I ended up winning this game. So surprise attack is good for this list because it has a spat, which means that I get to pick where your flagship is and then just murder you with my Venator, double arcing you with using that clone gunner to guarantee that you can't use your defense token. So I intel officer your brace, I target your redirect, and then you can't salvo and you can use your contain if you want, but I'm just blasting you from range, which is fun. Superior positions allows me to attempt to set up the same thing because you have to deploy all your ships first. And then Fleet and Bean is the more interesting one out of the pair. It has a lot of different like movement, and if you're here you lose a token, but if you're here you don't lose a token, and then when you get attacked you can spend a token to refresh one of your tokens, your defense tokens. So that really worked out for me. Because of the way I played it, I kind of fed the acclimator forward to eat up shots. And while it ate up shots, I just spent off all 3 of its tokens because I expected it to die because of the amount of firepower that Ken it was bringing into me. So I kind of just flew it right into his little zone of death and used the tokens to stay alive long enough to get my ships into position to kill his ships. That was my goal. One of our questions that we asked at the end of our video was, what is your guys' thoughts on Fleeting Beans? So if you have any thoughts, put them down in the comments now and I'll get to them. But for the most part, my thoughts is I don't consider the points in it at all. A lot of times I just consider the way to win Armada, regardless of the objective, is to kill the other person's ships. And if my ship somehow stays alive and I spent out all of the tokens, then that's worth more than 15 points, so I might as well just burn through all the tokens as fast as I can to keep my ships alive as long as possible, because then I can kill your ships. And at the end of the game, each player gains 1 victory token for each enemy ship in the play area that does not have any objective tokens. So if my ship's going to die, I don't care if it has no tokens on it, which was my thought process with all my ships. Yeah, so it worked out really, really well for me because I just fed Ken my 1 ship and then flipped all the tokens over. So let's check out deployment and how this game unfolded. So as you see here, down in this lower middle-ish area, Ken deployed his hard cells and all of his fighters. I deployed my Pelta and all of my fighters, and then I'm going to use this station as probably the engage point for this battle, so that I can heal and Ken can't. So when I'm ramming into him, feeding him my acclimator, then I kind of just pin him there, and then my Venator can swing around. And if you notice, there's this little gap right here that I'm planning on trying to fly through. Doesn't end up well, but that's my plan. I'm going to swing it around through here down the middle of the table, so then I can throw out the spat token out either side and hit most of the table from there if I'm going right down the middle. Ken's last 2 capital ships are over here, and they're going to try to crank in fast. Like, the Recusant's fast enough and maneuverable enough that it can pretty much start anywhere on the board and end up anywhere on the board, because it's probably the most munificent. It's the most maneuverable ship, one of the most maneuverable ships in the game. So, turn 1, you can see where this all lands at the end of it. Ken's coming around to engage. I have my fighter staging and my acclimator sitting on the station already, so it's obstructed to it, which is good because he is the closest target and will be the closest target. And then the next turn. As you can see, I'm just sitting on the end of this station so that I can heal if I need to. My Venator is coming in a little bit wider than I thought, so this asteroid's looking scary to me. Our fighters have engaged, which is fine with me, because as a GAR player, if they're just running generic CIS fighters, you should win because of defense tokens and things like that. So I'm fine engaging it. It means his hyenas aren't bombing me and I can stay alive. His hard cells are coming in hard, and my next goal is to try to wipe them out and then move on to his other ships. And if I can't move on to his other ships, I should be able to kill enough points of squadrons and the hard cells to win the game. I pop one of the hard cells, and then the acclimator survived so far, which was kind of my plan, and then the Pelta moves in and obstructs all the shots for it. So it's now like running defense for the acclimator, which then gives Ken a hard choice because they're in the same firing arcs, and then you have a choice of which ship do you want to shoot. Do you want to switch targets and leave an acclimator that's almost dead alive? No, that's not how you win games, just leaving ships almost alive. So then Ken had to shoot obstructed to try to get enough damage through to kill that acclimator, while my Pelta is running around just barely surviving. Squadron battle still going down. And let's jump to the next turn. If you notice this slide, I think this game was titled like slow moving. That was my goal. Like, I knew with the defense token regeneration that if I slow rolled it in, Ken didn't have the damage output enough to kill enough of my things before I could kill enough of his things. So that was kind of like what was going through my mind. Like, if I just slowly roll and we end up close, my ships should be able to outgun him, and I should be able to kill his fighters, so then that should give me a win, which is something that you should always be thinking about in Armada, is how fast will you be able to table the opponent? Will the opponent be able to table you? If either of those answers is no, which I don't think I could do this game because he had too much health between all the stuff, how fast could you kill something versus how fast they could kill you? And then how do you delay the game so that you can kill just enough to win and then move on? So, like, that's something, it takes a while to guesstimate. So here's that favorite obstacle of mine right here. And I landed on it, and it gave me a card. I forget the name of it, but every time I ram a ship or I land on an obstacle, I take another damage. It always happens with my big ships, and it always happens when I'm immediately going to ram something else and then fall right back on the obstacle. So it's like, here's 5 free damage on a ship. And this is the turn that Ken and I talked about decisions in the game being made, and you sometimes think something's a mistake, like from my perspective at Ken, and then Ken thinking that he didn't make a mistake, and then we talked about it later, and it really wouldn't have mattered, which is really weird. So Ken, being first player, chose to activate it. So I have the spat token right here, and I could shoot both the Munificent and I could shoot the hard sell. And Ken decided to move the hard sell away because he did not think that I could kill the Munificent with the spat attack. In my mind, I knew that I could kill either one, and I wanted to kill the Munificent because it's a bigger ship, which is worth more points. But it's not worth enough more points to actually change the end score. But like, you kind of don't know that until the end of the game. Also to note, Ken and I did mess up a little bit in this game. So if you look at this range ruler right here, this is a range 3 range ruler. And if you draw the line across, that Recusent's in my deployment zone. So he would have lost the token off his Recusent. So technically, that's 15 points toward me at the end of the game. We'll get to that in a second, and again, how it doesn't really matter, which is weird. At this point, my fighter pusher is dead, so my fighters are now just moving independently, so I start moving them forward to land where ships I expect to land. I had a choice. I could either go down toward the hard cell, but I know the hard cell was going to move faster, and I needed to guarantee that I killed this Munificent. And that's the end of the game. So at the very end of the game, we end up calling it. The Recusent cruises this way. My Pelta moves here. I take all that damage because I used this shot. You guys saw that. And then the Venator just flies off in this direction. And the hard cell comes down here, also landing at a deployment zone, also losing its token, which we don't go over in the thing because we weren't thinking about it. Because really, as soon as we moved out of our deployment zone, we completely forgot that you could lose the objectives, which sometimes just happens the way you play the game, because I think this might be maybe the second or third time either of us have played this objective. So if we pull up the score, and then I'll point out how, and then it really doesn't matter. If you add to me 30 points, and you add 30 points to the MOV, it lands it at like 120, and I would need to get at least 140 points for it to be changed to an 8-3. So the score stays the way it is. So even like with that mistake of us not figuring out that Ken would lose those tokens and I would gain those points, it didn't matter because it didn't change the score. Which just goes right back into what we were talking about a lot of times. Like, you think that... I just think it's interesting. I've actually talked with another one of my friends about this recently too. About how a lot of games you play and you make a lot of choices in the game. And then when you go back and you review like your choices that you make to decide if you could make better choices, you look back and you're like, even if I did the opposite of that choice, would it really have changed the game? And a lot of the times the answer is no, which is an interesting thing. So if your choices don't really matter, are they really even choices? So that's like deeper philosophy. Like it always ends up when I hang out with him, we play board games and talk philosophy related to board games, which is kind of funny. So I liked Rovechkin's list because it wasn't made by me, and it gave me a different puzzle to figure out during the game, which is a challenge. Because a lot of times when you like build a list, you're like, oh, I'm going to use this card in this way, I'm going to use that card in this way, these fighters interact in this way. But then when you're handed a list, you can look at the list, but you weren't in the building process. So you then have to break down that list and think about how that list is designed so that you can make it so then you can play the list to be the best that it can be. And sometimes that's a little bit difficult. Again, like the only thing I would really change is that clone gunners I would change to flight controllers. But at the same time, I don't think it actually would have changed the game. Which is just kind of funny when you just think about it. Like, it doesn't change it. I would change it because I think it would be better. But then I don't actually think it would change it enough that I wouldn't kill his fighters faster because I killed his fighters, like, right on the dot. So, and I think I killed them after my acclimator died. But I would have to go back and review that to make that a fact or not. So that's kind of my thoughts on the game. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are. I'm going to go back to the comments, start reading the comments, and then probably start wrapping it up. I didn't have like a specific strategy part of this video this time. I might not for the next couple of weeks just because of how busy it is with moving and things like that. I'm hoping to do Backseat Admiral next week, but we're like in limbo with the bank and the lawyers for a closing date, so it's hard to predict what date I can even be available with work and closing, so life's busy, so that's part of being an adult. It sucks. Okay, so let's look back here. I don't know if I could get free in October, William. Life's just really busy. Ken and I right now aren't doing any recording, so once I move into my new place, we're going to rebuild the studio, and we'll have to get right back into recording. Ken, I know, is working on getting his basement set up and running for us to do a studio there, so that's just from... We're busy from, like, Iron Radio perspective, and that's not even taking into the fact of anything with our life, which makes, getting to tournaments very difficult. Yes, I do give Ken difficult choices, and Armada is a game that is won by and lost by choices a lot of times, even though I just said that a lot of times the choices don't matter. But forcing your opponent to make choices means that you're forcing them into more scenarios that they're going to make mistakes. And then you just capitalize on mistakes. That's how you usually win most games. And Armada, with the way activations go back and forth, is a game that you can very easily force opponents to make mistakes. And if you go back to Season 1's finale, you can see that I forced Ken's hand in a lot of things because of the activation order across the entire board. And then the turn that pretty much everything on both of our sides blew up, it was just the cards falling down of choices that were made earlier in the game about movement and positioning and things like that. And then the activation order kind of just played itself out. That ship, that ship, that ship, that ship. And then, we were shooting back and forth. And then this is what blew up because it was set up 2 turns in advance and you had hard choices to make during that. Yes, damage controls, that's one of the cards. So the 2 cards that I dislike the most, damage controls, because I always land in an asteroid when I get it, and I'm always going to immediately ram something else and then fall back onto it. So that's asteroid damage 1, ram damage, bonus ram damage, asteroid damage, hopefully it's not a structural, and then another ram damage. So that's like 5 damage in like one movement. It's just very frustrating. So, yeah, damage controls. How did Ken and I become friends? We actually became friends through Armada. And when Armada first came out, there wasn't really a group that I played with. I went to one of the stores, and it was mainly X-Wing people that already knew each other, and I was the weirdo that was playing Star Trek Attack Wing at the time. So they didn't know me, I didn't know them. They hung out in the corner of the table area and didn't interact and talk to anyone. So then it was just me waiting for someone else to show up, which was a real turnoff to going back there. So I didn't. So I just collected the ships for years and mainly watched YouTube channels like Masters of the Fleet. They were primarily the ones. And enjoyed watching them play the game and understanding how to play the game. And then I would watch like FFG's like Worlds live streams and things like that. And that's how I kind of got my Armada fix. And that's one of the reasons why I enjoy doing Armada, because to me, like watching YouTube battle reports on Armada has always been like one of the main reasons why I got stuck around in Armada at all, is because I've enjoyed that, and then I enjoy now producing it for other people to enjoy. So that's the long story on my side. Ken kind of had the same experience, and he just collected Armada and didn't really play it as well. So after the Corellian conflict came out, there was a local game store that opened up like a block away from both of us. It's now closed, sadly, but it was Greenfire Gaming. And you can actually search Greenfire Gaming, and you can find Ken and I playing some of the first games of Armada that we ever played against each other on that, because they would live stream our games. And that's another reason why I got an idea to do this. So that's how Ken and I met. I saw them do some live streams because I would just search Star Wars Armada on YouTube, and they came up, and I'm like, hey, that's kind of cool. And hey, that is literally a block away from my house. And I reached out to him like, hey, when do you guys play Armada? I would love to come by and check it out, meet the players, and see if it was, if it was better than the situation that I had been previously with just going to events, being ignored because everyone else is doing their own little thing in the corner. And that's where I met Ken. And we started playing Armada, and then we just became really good friends with it. So, yeah, that's how we met, and that's how we became friends. So we're friends around Armada and enjoying playing together when we both had sour experiences with the game to begin with, and decided that we wanted to take the negativity that we had with the game and turn it into something positive. So that's kind of how we met, and kind of we've just been friends since. And so, like, it was just Ken and I really playing at the game store. Occasionally someone else would come in to play us, but it was really just us week after week by ourselves there playing Armada, and it just kept going. The game's closed, and then we just went and played Armada at each other's houses, which is what it is. Let's see. Dear Ken, I'm planning on going to LVO in January. I for sure am not, and Ken does not know yet for LVO. Yep, Ken is working on his studio. I'm working on our studio, so we actually, it was like kind of sad when we were packing up the studio the other day, because we filmed a lot of Armada there. It's kind of like the same thing when we left my apartment where I lived, and now we don't have the ambulances in the background, so there's a plus and a negative, because that was always kind of funny. Like, we filmed a couple episodes there, but the majority of our channel has actually been in our basement currently. Like, we have two of our now seasons, a whole Rebellion in the Rim, our March Madness tournament, tons and tons of episodes. Like, it was, kind of nostalgia, looking back and enjoying it. So we're excited to now, like, know how we film and make a new studio in my new basement, and then Ken's developing his basement. So we're gonna keep filming in those places. Yeah, Ken only pulls structurals. Some days I wish he pulled something else, and then, like, a lot of times, like, trying trying to think of when this episode came out. Ken plays a Super Star Destroyer. Might be this coming season, but sometimes you just want, like, there's tons of hull. Why am I not getting criticals? And it's super frustrating. And then he gets a structural, and then he just flips it back down. I'm like, no, I want something lasting to be bad for you. But structurals usually kill him, so. Even, like, in his other tournaments and games that he goes, it's just amazing how he only pulls structurals. He always, like, tells me, he's like, hey, I went to this store today, and I played Armada, and my ship blew up because of structural. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I'm laughing because it's just always funny. Any tips on building a local Armada group, working on one in San Francisco? It's really about... Let's see if I really want to tackle this. Personal opinion, I feel that... Hot takes by John. I feel, again, because of personal opinion based on what I just talked about, there's a lot of elitism in Armada. And there's a lot of people in Armada that know a lot of things about Armada, and they're very happy to tell you about how much they know about Armada. And that turns people off. So one of my things that I would say about Armada and starting a community about Armada is don't do that. And just let people explore the game how they want to explore the game, and explore the game with them. And like what is any group, just be positive and be inclusive of everyone into your community, and be open to helping people get into the game. So there's a store that is very much north of me. I actually really enjoy going to the store, but it's like an hour plus to and from to the store. And it's on Sundays, and it's really difficult for me to get to and from there with my work schedule and things like that. I really enjoy going to it, but they have a very good group there of people that will bring a fleet for someone that wants to learn how to play the game. And that's really, I think, the best way how to do it. So if you have like a player in your community that has like everything, and other players can as well have everything. Just like if someone approaches you, like when you see someone playing Armada, a lot of people will come up and ask you what you're doing. And then invite them, hey, would you like to learn how to play? I could teach you. When are you available? Like, we have a Discord, contact us, join this, and then, give us our availability, and I'll build you a fleet. What's your favorite faction? Do you like the Imperial? Do you like the Rebels? Do you like the Republic? Do you like CIS? I'll build you something, and keep it easy, not a lot of upgrades, and then just bring them a fleet and play it. If they like it, they'll stick around. If they don't, they'll move on, and then they haven't wasted their money. But most of the time, the people that want to get into Armada will play Armada, and then you just get the word out there that you're playing Armada. A lot of that has to do with the game stores that you try to build around. You need support from them. And Armada takes up a lot of space, but it's just really, can the store make money? And if you make it so that you're bringing people into the store to make money, a store will support you. So build around there. Build around including people and not being elitist and let them explore the game themselves. Build around being positive community and respecting others. Build around having an open idea of bringing people into it to try to keep them there. And then joining with a store to bring people into the store, because the store needs people to come into it to make money, and you need people to come into the store to play the game. So those 4 things is how I would form a community. Okay, back to this. Shirts in the future. We actually have a Teespring store. It might be in this description. If not, it's in most of our descriptions or videos. This one might be an old description because it was last minute with the difficulty that we have earlier with my mic. Yeah, well, hopefully that advice helps everyone. That's just my opinions. I'm sure there's other ways to... Honestly, I should probably just do a full episode, even though I just talked about it on that one day. So, this coming week, we have episode 2 of season 2. Let me pull up real fast what we have, and I'll spoil it for you. Also, We also have our very first, this is kind of big for us, Legion game is going to be released this week. So Ken and I are both excited to be diving into some Legion. We had this planned way, way long ago, and then something called COVID hit and delayed us way longer than we wanted or expected it to delay us. So, actually, the next episode is the episode that I started thinking of. Ken's playing Jerjerrod on a Super Star Destroyer, and I'm playing a Plo Koon list coming up this week. That's a fun one, so that's spoilers. So hopefully you guys enjoy that episode. That's our next episode. And then we're also having Legion, so we hope you enjoy that and look forward to the feedback that you guys have on us. Backseat Admiral may or may not happen next week. I would like it to. So I'll keep you guys posted on our Discord about my availability and when I can do it. So let's just make sure there's nothing else in here. Yeah, so thank you very much for joining us. I hope you guys enjoyed the time that we had tonight. I look forward to talking to you guys again. If you guys want, we have our Discord links, and you can join us and you can talk to us on Discord and a whole bunch of other people. We're trying to have a positive, inclusive community there based around our channel, so you can come talk to us there. We have multiple releases coming out the rest of the week. And again, thank you to Roger Rovechkin for submitting this list. It was fun playing it. He is one of our Patreons, and that's where we drag this list from. So until next time, I'm John. This is Backseat Admiral, and you've been watching Ion Radio.